My name is Cesar Oswald Diaz Pantoja. I was born in Austin, Texas on July 16th, 1969, which was also the day we shot off to the moon. Very important date in history. But I had a great childhood. We lived in a really small town, and we didn't even live in town, so we had 600 people in Lorain, Texas. But I lived outside of town, so 8 miles outside. So we literally had our house, and my grandparents lived right down about 100 yards away from me, and we roamed the entire day. We were on about 110 acres of fields and pasture land. So it was myself, my brother, and like 6 or 7, depending on the day, cousins, right, that were all running around together. We had dogs, lots of dogs following us around. Probably they were never the same dogs either. I don't know, 5 to 10 dogs. Well, they were our dogs, but like ranch dogs, they wind up leaving and they come back and what have you. So, but I did have one dog through my childhood that stayed with us, Schultz. So I liked Schultz. He was such a good dog. He was named after Schultz, the Hogan's Hero guy. I have one brother. We were both adopted, so he's 3 years older than I am. He was adopted in 1966, and so I think he was somewhere around 3 months when he was adopted. I was 5 months old when I was adopted. So my parents were really good people. They were just I wouldn't say upper middle class. I mean, we had everything we needed, and we didn't have everything we wanted. Right? I guess like most kids maybe. They were very hardworking. My dad, we had a second grade education, and my mom dropped out in eighth grade. And my mom went back though. She got her GED at this place called the Wallace Community Center. So, doing the work I do now is important because I saw my mom benefited from this same kind of thing. My mom was, I think, from working in the fields when she was little, picking cotton, hoeing cotton, to like fabrication. The RVs, the little RVs. Holiday Rambler was a company back then. And my dad was a rancher. He worked 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. He learned a trade. He taught himself how to weld, and he started just welding on his own. They're not alive today, unfortunately. My dad was 53 when he passed away. I think at that time, about 20 years old. It seems like you don't ever have enough. When you're 20 years old and you lose your father, it's tough. He was a really gentle spirit. He was an honest man. And I'll tell you a story that would encapsulate him. One time he was building some fences, and we were a little bit older then. I was probably about 13. And this guy, Victor, that was his friend, Victor De Lora. It was payday, and my dad had hired some people that were not documented to help as well. And when he paid them, he paid Victor and he paid those guys, and it was the same wage, right? And Victor got upset, right? He was like, "Why are you paying these undocumented people?" My dad said, "Look, they're humans. Everybody's the same. They deserve to get paid the same wage, even if they're documented or not." So it was, the minimum wage at the time. And, nobody paid undocumented people like that. Like, my father could make a gate, right? And make the ends of the pipe, after cutting them, match perfectly, geometrically, right? And he couldn't tell you mathematically how he did that, right? But he just knew how to do it. And I knew the math, and I couldn't do any of that, right? He was a very compassionate, very loving guy, and wise. I mean, he was a wise man. So that really instilled a lot in me. It impacted who I am now and what I do today. I carry that forward. My mom was a very hard worker. Wound up working at a cement plant, and when there was an opportunity for her to bid for a job to become a crane operator, she did, and she got the job. She was the first female crane operator at Lone Star Industries. I can't tell you how many people told me that she was the best crane operator they had. So I'm, really proud of her for what she did. She taught us Spanish first, right? It was because of my mom that we speak Spanish today. We learned to read in Spanish before we ever went to school, and that continues to benefit me to this day. I don't think she would have ever imagined or knew, the impact that had on me to be bilingual. They always found ways to take us places, even if they weren't expensive. And one year, even they took us to Six Flags in Arlington, Texas. We'd never driven that far in our lives. I thought we were like going to the cross country or something, right? It was like a 3-hour trip. And they came up here, they didn't know anything about a theme park, or they just knew that they had heard about it and they wanted us to have the experience. And we're like elementary kids, right? I think my brother was in junior high. We get here and they pay to go in the park, and then we had the hardest time finding where the rides are, and then they were afraid for us to get on some of the rides, so it was like we didn't hardly ride any ride, but it was just the trip and the experience. And then one year they took us to Colorado on a trip. We went and saw the Billy Kid Museum. I'll never forget that. A train ride. So they did things like that I know they really didn't have the money probably to do those things. It was a huge sacrifice for them. My mom was the more strict person. You knew my mom loved us. She's not the kind to hug you and that kind of stuff. My dad was that guy, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. Always telling us he loved us. And my mom pushed for us to go get an education beyond high school. I wanted to not go to college. I wanted a motorcycle and I wanted to ride just around it. That's all I could do. That's what I told my teachers in high school. I just want to, ride around the United States. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about where I was going to get money to do that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go to the military when I get out. And my mom was like, no, you need to go to college. And said, I really don't want to do that. So she was like, make me a deal. You apply for a scholarship that my company has. It's a national scholarship. Cause if you get the scholarship, you go to college, and if not, you go wherever and have my blessing. You wouldn't believe it. They only gave 4 of those, and I won 1. And it was a 4-year scholarship,
wow.
So I went to college, yeah. Yeah, I didn't ride my motorcycle. I rode the back of the Lone Star Industries through college. For us, they instilled in us a belief in God. From a young age, I was reading the passages in Spanish, and so that really helped me kind of like expose me to public speaking and those kind of things. I think skills that are important today in my job. A lady named Miss Kim Etheridge, she'd find novels for me to read, and I'd do book reports and stuff. My first elementary school was in Andrews, Texas, and I'll never forget, there was a giant giraffe in the playground. That's what I remember about it. A metal giraffe, one of those you could climb.
Yeah.
And something you'd never find in a playground now, because half the kids would break their neck on the thing, right? So, but I'll never forget that giraffe at that elementary school. I'll never forget that. I don't know. It's etched in my mind.
But you used to climb it?
We used to climb it and play on it. That giraffe just stuck out in my mind. I'd like to go back and see if it's still there someday. I was 5 years old, and I remember getting in an argument with a kid there. That was the first time I ever fought with a little boy. And he stuck my tongue out, and I grabbed it. Like I tried to grab it, and then he bit me, and, it was a whole deal. We were like in kindergarten. It was so funny. Yeah, I'm sure the teacher didn't think it was funny, but I thought it was. Now I think it's funny anyways. Then for the rest of my life, I went to Highland High School, because Highland was a great school. Literally 133 kids from kindergarten to 12th grade. So you started on this side of the building, right, and you just kind of crisscrossed your way. Except for kindergarten, I had to finish it. You had to go be bused to Roscoe, which was the town next to us, because they didn't have a kindergarten. Was that I didn't like nap time. At 5 years old, I wasn't interested in them. And Miss Aljo, she, I got licks. For those of you who don't know what corporal punishment is, I got a lot of that. So like most of the kids had these little mats that would fold out. We couldn't afford it. We just had a towel, that we would lay on. And I'd be talking, whispering to friends,
No, I don't believe
and
it.
then all of a sudden, swata, it would burn. I was, they'd take us out to watch the band rehearse. And, like teachers they're the worst about talking. So they would all go and congregate over here. They're talking. And I was like, wow, look at the stands. This is great. I'd never been to a football stadium ever. So I just climbed all the way to the very top. And I was like sitting up there with my little feet dangling off. And she turned around and I thought she was going to faint, Say that! I was very calm and happy. And that made me panic. Like, if she wanted me to fall, she did the right thing by yelling like that. Because she almost made me fall out of that. She took me to the principal's office, and you'll never forget, the guy's name was Rudy Rotten. And they gave me licks in there, right? So I got a lot of tender loving board when I was in. Did a lot. I'd like to kid around and prank, and so sometimes things would break and people would get upset and I would get licks. But it all ended when I got to high school because although I may not look it now, we're very athletic in high school. I played all sports, right? And we won state championship in football. And so I was very memorable, right? And when you're in a little bitty town, the whole school goes, and if it's only a couple hundred people. Mm-hmm. But it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of good friends. But I couldn't wait to get out of there. I graduated in 1987 from Highland High School, Highland Hornets. And then I went to registered at Angelo State University. I decided I wanted to go further from home because Angelo State is only about 70 miles from my house. So I went and called Alpine, Texas, Sul Ross University, and said, I want to go to school there. I'm registered at Angelo State. I'd like to go to Alpine. Is it too late? And they're like, no. And I had never visited Alpine in my life. I showed up the day of freshman orientation. I got my dorm room. I unloaded my 2 or 3 bags and connected my little tiny little TV. And sat there and thought, what in the hell am I doing here? I know nobody, right? But I did quickly make friends. I made a lot of friends there. I had a botany professor that called it God's country. And he's right. It is just beautiful.
Why?
Down there.
Why is it beautiful?
It's where the Guadalupe Mountains chain starts. So from my dorm room, every morning I'd see antelope back there. It was amazing. It was pretty neat. It snowed every year. It was different, right? Because in West Texas, everything's flat. Oh. Only trees are mesquite. Over there, you had, mountainous area, and it just was beautiful. And it's only an hour and a half from Big Bend, so we get to do that a lot. It's only 30 miles from Fort Davis, which has the Fort Davis Mountains. UT, actually. They have the McDonald's Observatory there. You'll see stars. You can't imagine. You go over there and think, oh my God, where do these stars come from? You can see the Milky Way. Wow. It's just fantastic. It's so dark. There's no light, so you can see all the stars. Beautiful country. I'm taking my kids out there. They didn't appreciate it as much as I did, but they were little kids, right? Mm-hmm. They were like, what are we doing in the desert, So
there's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I left there. I decided that, I was like, what? 15 hours shy of graduating, and I just decided I want to go work. So I came home and told my mom I'm not going back to school. She was so disappointed. I just broke her heart, I know. And I came with my cousins to Dallas and started working just jobs like switchgear systems, like sandblasting and painting parts, and just all kinds of crazy jobs. I worked at the Sheraton that was by the old ballpark. Then I started at UTA. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and finish my college degree. So I went to UTA for about a semester or 2. My dad got ill, so I went back home. Helped my mom for about a year. He got better. And then I came back up here. And then my dad got, about another year, my dad got sick. And then that's when he passed. So I stayed with mom for about half a year. Why went to the novitiate, right? I said I was going to be a priest. I did a lot of thinking.
Oh, wow.
I went up at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, because I looked at this group called the Vincentians first. Great guys. At St. Vincent de Paul is the founder of that order. And that happened to be the order of nuns where I was adopted from. And it was called Home of the Holy Infancy at that time. Now it's swallowed up by UT. It's like on 26th Street. So they're still there. There was a priest that was doing like, it's a revival kind of thing. So I went and visited them, and I really got a good feel. I said, like, I think this is where I need to be. And they had a home there for older guys like me. I was considered an old guy. Oh. Right, I was in my 20s.
Why
right?
a priest?
I just, I'd spent 6 months out there communing with nature, discerning what I really wanted to do with my life. And I just felt a calling at the time. I felt that I needed to explore this at least. So I went to St. Edward's, and that Jimmy Norman House of Studies is on the campus of St. Edward's. And there were like 12 of us in that group, a couple of priests. And so I did a year there, and I wound up meeting the woman that I wound up marrying, So then I came back, and I said, you know what? I was helping a cousin of mine with a daycare, doing all the paperwork. So I helped him, get all that in order. I started going to UTA again.
UTA for what degree? What are you studying at this point?
At UTA, I was trying to do interdisciplinary studies. I had some criminal justice degree stuff. I had some philosophy stuff, so I was combining all that to do that. Cause I was
so how did your cousin decide that you would be able to help him out with?
Most of my family were manual labor, right? So nobody went to college other than one of my uncles.
Oh, okay.
So I was the first guy, definitely in my journey, and even past that now, that went to school, that actually went to, so they figured since I went to college, I knew something. I was the smart guy, right? Okay. So they said, hey, can you help me? So I went up, I knew nothing about that.
It had anything to do with your degree or anything. It's just the fact that you were
listen, ask him. Yeah. He knows. He reads books, right? Yes, right. We listen to Tejano music, that's it, and drink beer on the weekends. He reads books, right? Most of them are entrepreneurial, right? Run their own businesses and stuff. So I admire them because I've never had, that, I guess, risk factor to do what they've done, and they've done well. And then I started working in Dallas. I thought, let me go finish this degree, sociology. I thought, maybe I'll do something with sociology. And I don't even know why I chose that. There was Northlake College in Irving. When I got there, they're like, oh, your financial aid didn't come through. I'm like, I don't have the money to pay for this, right? So I wound up leaving. Then it happened in Dallas. I was a translator, interpreter, and my supervisor was like, have you ever thought of teaching? And I said, well, not much. It's just, they pay better than translator interpreters. And there's a Grow Your Own program in Dallas. They'll pay for your school if you commit to a certain number of years to teach, right? So I was like, let's do it, right? I went to a meeting, and it were 5 universities, Midwestern, Texas Woman's, North Texas, Commerce, University of Texas at Dallas. They all offered classes in this building. And I went and I just looked at the groups, right? And the biggest group there were a bunch of young women that were going to do Texas Woman's. Because they said, as long as you have enough students, you can make a class here. But if you don't have enough students, you'd have to go to the campus. I'm not the best mathematician, but I figured if there's 30 of them, we can make any class we want to. You just got to convince them to take the classes you want. They all wanted bilingual ed. I wanted bilingual ed, so I became a Texas woman, And that's been one of the proudest moments of my life. But yeah, I became a Texas woman, and we did these classes, and it went just like a plan. We all got together and did these classes. Every class met in Dallas.
And how many men were?
That was it. Me and a bunch of women. That was it. Young ladies, I should say.
Yes.
And they were such nice people because there was one class that I needed that no one else needed. I wanted because I was going to have to drive to Denton to take it. So I went to Dr. Pauly and I said, hey, I explained the situation to him. And he said, if you find that many people tell Dr. Rodriguez we won't charge him for the class for that summer. If you're going to take the initiative to go find people.
Yeah.
So I went and I recruited. I talked to every student and I got exactly 11 more. Me and 11 more, that was 12. I was so happy. I took the form to get the class made, to Dr. Rodriguez, and he looked at it and he's like, "What's this?" I said, "Well, that class where he goes, you don't decide what classes are offered where." And I'm like, "What?" It shocked me. And so he said, "We're not going to do this class." He goes, "I'm the one that organizes these classes." I said, "But you told me." And I guess, he forgot or he just didn't figure out what to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I told him something because when we were doing Tour of Texas Woman, he talked about how numbers were down and how not many people were wanting to go into these fields. And I said, "You know why people don't want to go into these fields? Because it's people like you. You've forgotten that college is for the student, that your clients are you're here to serve." And he got so mad. I mean, as red as a beet.
Yeah.
"Give me that paper." He signed it.
Oh.
And never talked to me again, right?
Did you get any pushback from the instructors, the other...
Oh, for Texas Woman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I took a residency class, and it was, the instructor's name was Sharon Snow. She did have a problem with men being at the college, and she was very open about it. She said, it's different, she felt, than like when men had to, allow women in. Like all these. And she said some guy sues the college years ago to get in and let him in, and she said it's different because women need a safe space, in particular for math, for these things. And I see her point, right? Because there are, guys are domineering a lot of times. So I've seen it in classes where you have very intelligent females and they're not as assertive and they know the answers and they're really maybe the best student in the class. But I didn't know what to say to her, and she kind of held a grudge, whatever. And she said, I went and got my PhD, and I had such a difficult time finding a job. And it's during the tech boom, right? Mm. So, I put my foot in my mouth. I was like, well, if you really wanted a lot of choices, you should have got a computer science degree. And she got so angry, right? My peers, they were really nice.
Really?
Yeah. I had always was blessed to have, good people. I taught first grade.
Wow.
First grade bilingual. And then I decided to go back to coordinator for translations because it was more pay. And I went on to get my master's in public administration. I did it at UTA, came back to UTA, and actually finished a degree there. And once I finished that, I got this job. I got the job here at TCC. And so I finished that, and I applied for law school right away. I was the last class they graduated from Texas Wesleyan before they sold out to Texas A&M. It was a sad day in the history of Texas that A&M came up here and commandeered our school from us, but I guess gig them. Who knows? What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self? Oh my gosh. Take advantage of all the time you have, Enjoy every minute of your life, and because there's stages of your life. And as you go along, sometimes we tend to focus at the next thing. We're looking forward, we're not, or you might look a little bit back, but you're not enjoying right now. You're not taking advantage of it. I did a pretty good job in enjoying a lot of them, right? Mm-hmm. But there's times I lost focus, so enjoy each area of your life. When you were a kid, what is one profession you would like to explore that you didn't get to? I'm doing it now. I'm about to do it. I want to tell you, when I was a little boy, when I was just a gleam in my father's eye. No. Yeah, no. When I was a young man, we didn't have a very big library at Highland once, but we did have something really neat. It was called the Book Mobile, and it came from the big city, from Sweetwater. And I would always ask for books about lawyers and attorneys, and I wanted to read stories about lawyers and stuff. So the library would always find new books to bring me. And I don't know why, but I always thought, you know what, I would love to be a lawyer. What are some unusual places you've been to? Probably there's no more unusual place than my own mind. It is a great place to visit. I give you an example today. You experienced that. You know, we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I had Susan's father, God knows what. But she says she starts describing how her dad's walking, fast and stuff, in the kitchen, and then she's talking about what's going on with her, and all I could think of was a musical, I got to get some food, right, that kind of thing, and she's continually talking about something else, and I feel a little bit like I told you Homer Simpson in that scene where he's like thinking about a world of chocolate and the Germans are taking over the company and they're like Homer and I'm like what some unique places that I've been to. Big Bend area, it is unique. It's very beautiful. Fort Davis, I think if you've never been there to visit the McDonald's Observatory. Carlsbad Caverns, we did that as a family, right? So that was another one. I really enjoyed that place. I think it has it's the only place I've ever been to when they turn off the lights and then literally you cannot see your hand in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just unbelievable, right? Mexico City. I've been to Mexico City and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to see, the big museum there and
Did you go to
some
the
of the
Basilica?
ruins. The Basilica. Oh, I was so impressed. Amazing. Very impressive. I'd like to go back, but if I never did, at least I got to go once because I thought it was great. This last weekend, I took my son to Corpus Christi, and Corpus in itself probably is not on anybody's top 1,000 or 100 places to go, but when you go as a family, right, and you make memories like we did, they stand out to me. And then I took my daughter to New York City. We did everything she wanted to do and more. I took her to a concert. I tell you, in Brooklyn, I had no idea where I was going. It's in the middle of the night, and here I am with a bunch of young kids. An artist that had never performed before that she had heard of, and found the tickets. I bought them. I said, let's go. And, that's an experience,
Was it
right?
worth it?
It was really worth it. He was actually pretty good. And, he's probably going to be very famous someday. And she saw his very first performance. She was right here. She could touch him. I read. I do love to read books. So that's always enjoyable.
What kind of books?
A variety. I like mystery, but I also like things that are like suspense. I like those kind of books, but biographical books. I like that. I like to pick up a book. I like to turn the page. At least me, you can actually picture where in the book it's at. Is it in the beginning? It's in the middle. It's just hard to do in an electronic copy of a book. I would say I love football because I'm a very emotional football watcher.
Get into it.
I do.
Okay.
I love Notre Dame. I love that football team. I just grew up passionate about it. And when they lose, I almost feel like they're doing it to me purposefully. Like, here you go. My wife is a very unique person. She was the first one in her family to go to college. She had to fib to her dad, more or less, because he was like, you're not going to college. But here's the thing about my father-in-law. He's a guy, you talk about a man of his word. If you said you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So she said, I signed some contracts already, some paperwork, right? And he was like, what? So he's like, well, now you got to go. So she went and really did well to St. Edward's. That's where I met her, right? And she was a math major. My wife's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And not just intelligent in knowledge, but she has a very high EQ, emotional quotient as well. So she has an ability to get along with a lot of people. She's more reserved than I am, and I love her. She's my soulmate, I will tell you, for sure. When we started looking for a house, we looked in the town we live, Alvarado, to buy a fixer-upper that I'm still fixing up 20 years later. You never finish that thing, right?
Yeah.
And I got all kinds of projects that are just halfway done, right? but we love it. It's a home. I love my kids. They're great. Sophie is my daughter. She's 15 years old. She wants to live in New York. She has big dreams. She has always been interested in like fine arts. She wanted to be in the Texas Girl Choir when she was in third grade, and then she went to her choir at her, in middle school, and then at high school, she really got interested in yearbook and photography and journalism, and she's video production piece where they do the news, and she's their sportscaster. Sophie was like kind of little girl that was always been independent. Oh my God. Like you try to help her with her alphabet, I know it. I don't want your help. That kind. I mean, for the time she was tiny. That's how she is to this day. The first time that I dropped her off at kindergarten, right? I expected her to, turn around or I dropped her, open the door, and she just straight. She's a great writer. She won't share them with me. Her teachers have to share them with me.
Yeah.
I think she'd be a great novelist or creative writer, and I think that's where she'll wind up. But I think she's going to have a lot of opportunities. So I'm excited for her. She loves to bake, and she's really good at it. She makes things from scratch, and she's real caring. She has really good friends, and she takes care of them, and they really look out for her. Carlos, my son, is completely opposite. He loves math and science, though. He wants to be a scientist, and I know he will be. He's really good at that kind of stuff. He's a very logical thinker. He is into videos and YouTube, and that's his life. He loves that stuff. He has a great sense of humor. He has a big heart, and he knows what he wants. He loves chess, and he's good at it. He's won his UIL competition for chess for the 2 years he's competed in it, and I just very proud of him. My current job title is coordinator of special projects. What I do basically is help people finish their high school equivalency or ESL, and then provide opportunities for them to transition into training or if not training, secondary, like college. What does life after TCC look like? It looks murky and hazy. No. I think, that when I leave here, whatever I've been doing is going to continue better than I was. And because, that's what happens. Things keep going. For me, it's a new adventure. Right, I went to law school, like I told you. So I see myself helping the same people I help now, but as a lawyer, right? My wife reminds me of this. Hey, I'm 50 years old. I'm starting a brand new job, right? So I'll be working with people that are older than me, a few, that have done this for a long time, and people that are younger than me, a lot younger, that have done this job for a long time. So I'm, it's a humbling experience. So I think it's another chapter that's going to have a lot of opportunities, not only for me, but for the people that I'm going to go serve. What superpower would you like to have? So there was a superpower that I shared in a meeting that Susan King was at, and she said that was a wasted superpower, but I still stick to it.
Okay.
The power to eat crunchy chips, but silently. Like, if you could eat them and it not make a loud noise. The loud cruncher is my pet peeve, right?
Wow.
I don't know, it kind of bugs me, and I don't say much because I have loud crunchers in my family. But I do things that annoy them too, right?
Yeah.
So ability to both eat loud crunchy noises and sounds and hear them and silence the loud crunchy noise. Yes.
All right, that's an interesting one.
Thank you. I hope the people that are closest to me, that I care about the most and care about me, can say that I was compassionate and that I was humble. And if they remember me by those two ways, I think I've been the person I strove to be. If I had to sum up my whole human species in 3 words, resilient, afraid, hopeful.